I was hoping. Actually, I learned a long time ago that to know what you don't know is the highest form of wisdom, Confucius. So I don't know most things, and the internet is a humbling reminder of all those things we don't know. But I like to find out methods for knowing, and that's part of what I'm going to talk about today. So first I'm going to actually, for some of you, I'm going to redefine the idea of creativity a little bit, okay? For some of you, it's find a nice creative idea, you know, a new one, something nobody ever thought of before. I'd like to introduce the idea that real practical creativity is not about finding a new idea. It's about finding a useful idea to meet some new need, maybe at new cost, so more people can use it. Let's call that practical creativity. So if you can find smart ways to deliver values at higher values at lower costs, then you're being creative even if you use old technology or old ideas. I love old ideas that even the Egyptians were using. Some of them are very good and they will last forever. And I collect them. They're called my principles. Okay. So, creativity. First, I like to name a particular kind of creativity, practical, purposeful creativity. It serves human needs, which is quite different from another wonderful thing called art, with surprising music and pictures. Okay? And that's just different. But most of us are in the practical, purposeful creativity sphere. And to do that, there are certain prerequisites, and one of them is not just we think of a new idea, but we deliver some new valuable things for people at lower cost so more people can use them. That's the key idea of my talk. Okay, so I'm pressing button right. Okay, now innovation. I have a little booklet I'm going to give you all called Innovative Creativity. But what is innovation? And innovation, again, is not just something new. Innovation is when you do something 10 times better with values and costs than anybody ever did before, giving more value to more people. Okay? Getting 0.001% innovative is not very innovative. 10 times is more interesting. Okay? So, now, Agile. How many people here say, I'm very comfortable, I understand what Agile is all about? And I was told not to expect too many hands to go in the air. Okay, so I will define agility my way, but the key concept for you is the idea of feedback and learning early and rapidly. Okay? And I'm sure you can relate to those ideas. Learning early if your creative ideas are working or not, and then pivoting or doing something, putting in new designs so that it works better, delivers more value at less cost. Okay? And the trick is early. If you have a choice between a small disaster early or a large disaster later, and Agile gives you the choice of small disasters early. Fail fast and learn early. Okay? I believe in something roughly like weekly iterations is a generally good idea. Weekly, you should learn whether your creative new ideas are working. That means measure, test with people, get feedback, and if they're not working, change right there, right then, that week, and find out next week if it's going to work better. So here's my definition of Agile. First, it's not one thing like the feedback I was referring to. It is anything that allows you to recognize you need to change, you need to improve. And anything that enables you to change and to improve. And anything. So it's extremely broad territory, this Agile. It's anything. It's not one particular prescribed idea, such as getting feedback and learning. That's only a very good starting point. And the point is, it's also, you're dealing with this changing environment where you're getting new signals about who your market is and what the laws are in countries you're trying to export to and all those kinds of things. And you have to constantly deal with this change. You have to be agile, to be creative and deliver that value at the lower cost. Okay? Here's you've probably all heard the idea fail fast, and that's some of what I'm talking about. But here's a lovely little thing. It's not about failing, it's about trying to succeed most of the time. Failing as few times as possible, but at least discovering that you failed early and doing something about it. Yeah, okay. Our hero, right? Leonardo da Vinci. And everything he stands for. But if you read his own principles, he had about 8 principles. This is a summary of about 3 of them. They were agile. He was truly the world's, maybe not first, there's always somebody before Leonardo da Vinci, but the first great agilista or agile person. And we can learn from him many ideas of how to be agile and, of course, how to be creative. Here is our own cycle of delivery. It's simply a learning cycle. Do, learn, act on the learning, do more. Okay? It's equivalent to the Deming-Duran plan, do, study, act cycle. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's very powerful. This is just an extension. But this is how I work with people doing, for example, startups, planning things. We start with the stakeholders. Very important idea. This is not the same as user or customer. It's a much broader idea. Stakeholder could be the European Union with the privacy law, which demands certain creative things from your system so you can do it cheaper. Okay? So it's not a matter of interviewing users and customers. It's a matter of 50 to 500 stakeholders. You have to spend at least one day looking at, find out what are all the demands on our system. And if you fail to do that, you fail to look at your stakeholders, and you narrowly look at just a user or customer, you will fail. And you don't want to fail. So step 1 in success is very simple. Stakeholder analysis. Look it up. Or read the free book. I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on that. Okay. And then we go through the cycle of finding out their values, finding designs. This is maybe what you think is the creativity. But I think it's creative to analyze early who are my stakeholders, so they don't bite you in the tail and kill your project at the end of 3 years of effort. Okay? Be creative in finding your stakeholders and finding their values early. Got it? Those who do not listen to what I'm saying will, 2 or 3 years from now, after a big failure, say, maybe we should look at Tom's methods once more. It's no fun to fail. It's nicely funded, but it's no fun. Oh, by the way, I have to make a silly little joke. I'm both Norwegian and proud to be American in this context. I'm both. But we Norwegians, of course, love polar exploration, and I'm so proud to see a Pole going to the poles. I'm glad you got a laugh. Staring you in the face. Okay, welcome to the pole. Okay. Anyway, the point is there is this like, by the way, Dr. Deming made the point that projects, we have this idea, projects have beginning and end, right? Cycles like this have no end. They go on forever. And as Deming put it so nicely, as long as you are in competition, no matter what you do, somebody, if you're the best, somebody will try to beat you. So you have to keep this cycle going for the lifetime of your product or system. So don't fall into this old Big Bang waterfall project model trap. Eternal, frequent circulation into trying to deliver the values, finding creative ideas, measuring how well they work, learning that they don't work as well as you think, and going through the cycle once more. So, big item is we're working in teams. Sometimes these teams are spread across the globe. People might never have been in the same room physically. And we know we're very interested in this idea of communicating so the team understands where the team is going and what they're doing. And I believe that this cycle of feedback is an excellent mechanism for helping a team keep adjusting all the time to where are we going, what are our goals, and things like that. So this whole process, I would say, is just good for team communication. Okay? The feedback and the measurement of the delivery of values, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So here, take a look at a simple goal. We want higher security. Sounds nice. People do that all the time. This is called management bullshit. Do you recognize it? It means everything and nothing, and you're totally wasting your time. And if you start a project with such things, you will fail to deliver what people really want, what your stakeholders really want, because nobody has ever defined it or agreed on it. Let's try something. This is extreme simplicity. We rewrite it. We want 95% of the hackers to be detected within 5 seconds. Yeah? That's extremely clear. I didn't say it's a good goal, it's not a comprehensive goal, we've identified them, but we haven't done anything about them, right? There's still 5% we didn't find within 5 seconds, okay? But it's a very simple example of you can reformulate this bullshit always on the first day of your project to clear and usually quantified ideas. I believe all values, all qualities of all critical stakeholders can always be expressed quantitatively with a number. Now, if you're a very artistic and creative person, maybe that turned you off. I sort of said mathematics, and you went for the arts. Think Leonardo da Vinci again. Great artist, but very numeric, very much an engineer. There's the beauty of combination of great creativity, and divine proportions. Okay? So we're not talking doing higher mathematics. We're talking doing measurement and quantification, which is as simple as that. Take that as a simple example. You can always translate the management bullshit into some kind of quantified, clear idea so that your team all understands that same quantified idea. So every creative idea or solution you have is measured against that same quantified idea. So you can test your creativity every week against a clear quantified notion. Got it? This is a prerequisite for advanced creativity as opposed to amateur creativity. I've just got a great new idea, but 3 years later my project has totally failed. That's not what anybody here is after. Oh, you want to know how to quantify everything? I've learned I can teach people in about 5 seconds. Get out your iPhone, if you have one. Go to a browser. Think of a quality of the systems you are building. Any quality you like. Okay? Now, write that word in the browser, and write the word metrics after it, like security metrics. You know what will happen for every one of you? Whatever you wrote, you will find people who have been quantifying and clarifying that quality, and you can copy them. Don't ever say it's soft, it's qualitative, it cannot be quantified. Google it first. One of our sponsors here, by the way. Google it first, and then decide whether people like you have been quantifying to get increased clarity of purpose. And they are very successful people. Okay? Google it. How many people manage to Google and find some evidence that it could be quantified? Now, right? Okay. And the rest of you have the rest of my talk to do it, or the rest of the day. Okay. Here's an example from one of my clients. This happens to be oil exploration. And they had a problem with the system which, if it was down when they're searching for oil, it cost like $1 million an hour. Okay, and the system was down. It was not robust, and it was very embarrassing. So the CEO came with the usual management bullshit. Robustness is an essential system requirement. Okay? 8 years later, with 50 people on the project, over $100 million being spent, no result whatsoever. Total waste. Then they called me in. A little bit late, but then they called me in. And I said, Problem is, that's bullshit. And we quantified that, and they got back on track and succeeded. But they could have done that 8 years earlier. They did not have clarity of purpose. Everybody was working on the project, working on the system, spending money, but they were not delivering the robustness because nobody had defined what it was. Does it mean 99.98% uptime for the system under undersea conditions? Say so. Don't just say robust management bullshit and walk off. When I was about 25, how many people are 25 plus or minus 5 years? Yeah, okay. When I was about your age, which was 1965, if you want to figure it out, okay, I read this in a Norwegian newspaper. And I looked at it and said, that's interesting. In what I was into IT and programming and things like that at the time, okay? And I realized nobody was measuring what we were doing. Most of the things we were talking about. They were just saying, well, software should be portable, and that was the end of that. Software should be of high quality and very user-friendly, and that was the end of that. So I started trying to find out how to quantify these things, and I made it my life. I wrote a book, Software Metrics, 1976. There's a lot of that stuff in it. What I learned is, if you're doing something very critical, very important that you get right, it pays off to spend a day of your life at the beginning of your project trying to quantify the most critical, essential values of your project. Just to make it clear, not for mathematics, not for measurement even, just to make it clear for you and your team what you're doing. And maybe your sponsors and your angel investors might like to know too, what you're doing, okay? So if you cannot measure and express ideas in numbers, then admit you do not know what you're doing and you are wasting your time and the money of your investors. And I think investors ought to demand this of investments, clarity of purpose. First, then we give you the money. And if you deliver that purpose, then we give you some more money for your startup, okay? Why? You've heard statistics like 19 out of 20 startups totally fail. That's not good enough. I believe in zero failure of startups. And I believe that if you use the ideas here, the rapid feedback, the numerics, you can achieve zero failure rates. Failure is because you don't have clear purpose and you don't listen to the feedback early enough. Those who do succeed every time, or at least they stop very early before they've wasted a lot of time and money, at least. Here's a simple ambition, level for, and this is the management bullshit level to reduce terrorist attacks and identify blah, blah, blah. Now, I believe that when I talk about quantifying, it means moving to defining a scale of measure, the number of negative effects on stakeholders from attack types under conditions in place, blah, blah, blah. And then you take these parameters, like attack types, and say, by attack types, I mean vehicle attack, knife attack, and gun attack. We're actually thinking of London terrorist attacks in this particular case. This is the rigor and structure of a scale of measure which gives you numerics, numbers, but also structure so you can decide that I want to deal with knife attacks, very important in London. I think 150 people killed this year in London from knife attacks, right? And I want to deal, you can choose and prioritize and select the highest priority things to do early and to do first, which automatically gives you higher value for lower cost and more credibility to attract support and funding. Okay? So, okay, now this is a very simple example. The book I'm offering to give you all has much more detail on how we do it. But I'm trying to show you this is what I'm talking about when I talk about structuring, clarifying, and making numeric the most critical thing. Okay? Have you ever thought about how to quantify terrorist attacks? We had one. I count them. No. How many people were killed on the streets of London or knife attacked this year? A little bit more. I've developed a tool, I call it an impact estimation table, and structurally it looks like this. But what's going on here is that I have my quantified values here, maybe 10, I've quantified some resources, both investments and long-term recurrent costs. I have some creative ideas here. And for each idea, I try to estimate and later to measure the impact that each creative idea has on all of these values and on all of these costs. In other words, I'm thinking multidimensionally, maybe 10 values and 10 costs. Now, the very smallest projects, you don't need to go there. But a project like terrorism in London, you do need to go there. There's a certain scale where engineering is necessary for everything, and that includes some of your projects. Okay? The table allows you to look at the benefits, plural, to costs, plural, ratio of any creative idea. So here's the big idea. Once you have quantified your values, you can now quantify the degree of goodness or creativity of a creative idea. And you can discuss it. And you can prioritize and say, team, which idea is giving us the most value for our limited money and time? Which one are we going to do in the next few weeks? You can prioritize and make decisions like this. This gives transparency of the creative process. Here's, we have built a tool to do this, but essentially what we're looking at can be done by any spreadsheet where the table is on a spreadsheet, and you can present to anybody who's interested the values and then the costs of the ideas, and you can even use a little bit of, let me call it artificial intelligence. You can automatically sort the ideas into value to cost or efficiency sequence, so the most valuable and less costly things are done early, meaning less time, less money, high value. Okay? This is prioritizing your sequence of these steps or iterations from which you're going to get feedback. So this you can do on any spreadsheet. That's simple. The little T form thing is the plus-minus uncertainty. We look at the risk of these estimates and things like that. So here's the citation I started with, since it almost alluded to the fact that I knew everything. My grandchild, this is 2 minutes warning, get out of here. My grandchild, when he was 5, looked at me and he said, grandfather, he said it in Norwegian, jeg vet alt. That means I know everything. Pretty smart little kid. But I got him. I said, if you know that, then you can tell me what you don't know. And he got it. He was stuck. So, end of talk. Really, I have some nice principles of creativity you can read when you want to, but no time here and now. But end with the idea that if you go to that link down there, you can get a small book, about 100 pages, with details of all these ideas. And I hope some of you will get the book, read it, and do it, and become super creative. Thank you.